if you send wrong invoices to
It
a
takes
client,
time. You got to correct it. They got questions, and it's just back and forth. And then
it makes you look bad.
yeah, they think,
And
and
we know you're
especially if you
better than
overbill them, they might think like you're trying to get over on them, and it could have just been a common, a simple mistake. But the other thing, small businesses I think make a mistake when it comes to their billing process, is not knowing when to cut off their service.
So a Commerce and Chill is the intersection of all things small business, entrepreneurship, life, love, and marriage from our perspective as two kids from New York City, Bed-Stuy and Brooklyn and the South Bronx. So welcome. Today we want to talk to you about big bills, small business, building good billing practices. So just to set the context, one of our businesses is a service-based business where we bill in arrears.
They're both service-based businesses.
They are both service-based business. But
Go ahead.
And so what that means is we provide the service, and then after the service is done, we send our clients the bills to get paid. We typically don't get down payments or advance payments, and clients will typically take anywhere between 30 days, 90 days before they pay us.
45.
Ideally, we want it to be less than 30.
Sometimes several months.
So we had one client with whom we were doing a substantial amount of business. And for some reason or another, they went months upon months without paying us. But by the grace of God, we were able to
We're still in business, thank God.
stay in business, right? Because our number one expense is payroll. And payroll comes every 2 weeks, regardless of when our clients pay us. So that's a real challenge for us, is making sure that our cash flow is tight and right. And we can go on in a future episode and talk about cash flow. But it kind of came to a head one day when I looked at our books, our financial books, and saw that in 1 month we billed them over $200,000, but they had only paid us less than $35,000 that month.
So I was like, where's my money?
And so I started reaching out to the end user like, yo, what's up? I've been sending you my invoices. You said you're working on it with money. I got to talk to somebody. Talk to that person's supervisor. I got to talk to somebody. Didn't hear anything. Went to the agency for whom we were doing the work.
So the moral of the story
is, so we just got 2 substantial payments.
And the moral of the story is,
but the question, it begged the question, what went wrong in the process that they were able to go so long without paying, that we continue to provide a service, and what do we need to do differently so that doesn't happen again? Because we don't necessarily want to fire this client, because they allow us to put a lot of people to work, people in our community that really need the jobs. And, we can kind of humble flex on the work that we're doing with them. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we do business with people and organizations that respect us and the people who work for us. And if somebody doesn't pay us in a timely manner, that means we can't pay our people in a timely manner, which means, long story short, they don't really care about my people. If you don't care about my people, you don't care about me.
So people are watching, what should they be doing? So what should we be sharing so they can learn from this experience that we had, that they don't make this experience? Because an experience like that, depending on what your cash reserves are, could put you out of business. It could end your shop.
We don't want you to go out of business. We want you to start businesses.
So
someone
starting a business.
So we want to talk to you about accounts receivable and how you can put.
They're not receiving information, so.
I am. If you would just stop
Come
cutting me
on,
off, I'm coming.
come on.
Okay, so according to Wikipedia, accounts receivable are legally enforceable claims for payment held by a business for goods supplied or services rendered that customers have ordered but not paid for. These are generally in the form of invoices raised by a business and delivered to the customer for payment within an agreed time frame. You hear that? Within an agreed time frame. So we want to talk to you about our personal experiences with billing and accounts receivable so that you get a few tips so you don't have this happen to you.
All right, so someone's starting a business, or they're in business, or they got a side hustle, and maybe they're like trying to go to the next level. Like what should they be doing?
So first,
for their billing, for their process.
Think about the circle of finance, right? You heard of the circle of life, Lion King, right? Pride, right, and Row. we talking about bank rock, note rocks. There is a cycle from which money and services go out, monies and services come back in. And so it starts with an agreement of some sort, whether it's an order, whether it's something online, whether it's a handshake or it's a contract. Then you will provide the product or service. Depending on the nature of your business, you can either get an upfront payment, like a deposit, or you can get timed payments over the course of providing that service, or you can do lump sum when everything is said and done. But there's some point you need to figure out what is the life cycle of your product or services, and at what points you need money to come in to determine how you should be invoicing your clients. And then you need to get paid so that you can pay for your overhead. That is any expenses that you have, regardless of whether or not you're doing new business. So if you have an office space, phones, internet, regardless if anybody's coming on, knocking on your door or going to your website, you got to pay for your website too. You're going to have to pay for those expenses. That's considered overhead. And then if you have people, you have to pay for the labor. If you have supplies, you have to pay for those as well. And then you want to get paid for what you do so that you can come out ahead, get a profit, that what's coming in, your income is greater than your expenses, your outgo. And then you reinvest what you have left back into the business so that you can generate additional profits. So basically, you don't want it to be an even 1-for-1 exchange. You want to have more coming in than goes out so that you can stay ahead in the game. And otherwise, you just have a job. So what should the billing process be, Cope?
So we're talking about someone starting out or like trying to go to the next level.
Yes.
Like I would get something very simple. I would start out with a simple electronic online platform to bill your clients. Whether your services, if it's a service or a product, I would look at QuickBooks Online. Mm-hmm. I look at PayPal. Mm-hmm. I look at HoneyBook. Mm-hmm. I would look at any one of those platforms where you could generate an electronic invoice, send it to them. They can click. Square has it also. You can send invoices. And some of you, the percentage or whatever they charge for the credit card processing fee. I get it. I use some of them. Some of them are a little high. But let's be clear. Cash coming in quick is better than cash coming in longer. Fast cash coming in is way better for you operating a small business than you're waiting to save like, I don't know, a quarter of a point, and you got to wait an extra 30 or 40 days to get it. It's important. But anyway, HoneyBook, PayPal, QuickBooks Online, one of these platforms where you can send it and make it as frictionless as possible for you to generate an invoice, send it to them. They can click a couple buttons and send you the money electronically as quick as possible. ACH it. They could do it by debit, credit, what have you, whatever their preferred payment method is. And I would look at one of these platforms too that scale in price according to your business. So a good example, Vocez threw out here earlier when we were off camera is HoneyBook. They're running a special. I think it's like $9 a month to use their platform.
Are they a sponsor?
No, they're not a sponsor, but we use them. Use them at the Soapbox, and it's an easy platform. You create your proposals in it, and then somebody accepts it, then you can send them an invoice. But what I would say too is having a quick, easy platform is you should be getting deposits for your work. I don't care what it is. If you're doing a service or a product, really think about it and say, how do I get a deposit on my work? So you have some cash up front to start a project so you can decrease the money you're taking out of your pocket to start it.
And then you also want to build the cost of something like that into the cost of doing business. So when you're figuring out your job costing, your proposal
what
fees,
the platform
make
cost.
Sure that you include the cost of the platform.
Why is it important for them to have a billing process?
So if you don't have a billing process, do you have a business? Like, I'm not even trying to be funny. Like, you might as well just go volunteer if you're not going to get paid.
Don't ask me that question because I'll go ham on this.
As Dr. Deborah Thomas always says, I think she got it from her grandmother, it's business. It's not Christmas. You're not doing this for boxes wrapped in paper and a bow. You're doing this, and the definition of business is exchange of services or products for something of value. And many times that's currency, that's payment. So go get your money. If you don't, clients may not take you seriously. Like, have you ever gone to a restaurant and then after you eat, they not bring a bill? Like, if they did that, would you Like, would you say, what's wrong with this place?
If they didn't bring me a bill?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would go back because that means I'm eating for free.
But they might not be there long.
I don't know, but I'm going to go as many times as I can. The food is good and they not charging me. I'm going back every day until that sucker closed down. But yeah.
It's an important part of the overall business process. And so you want to make sure that you have sound processes and sound systems. I talk about this all the time, so that people will take you seriously, especially when you're starting out. You want to seem like your business has credibility. And so if you don't have good billing processes in place or working towards doing that, then you're going to look like a joke. Like I was telling the team earlier that when we apply to do business with large corporations, many of them want to vet us because when they're letting new companies into their supply chains, that represents a potential risk because they can continue to do business with the firms that they work with because those are known entities. And so they want us to give them volumes of information on our finances. They want to make sure that we're financially viable because it doesn't make sense for them to engage us to do business with them. And if we can't pay our bills and can't pay our people, then that creates a risk to them. And our whole business and security is risk mitigation. And so they ask us about our billing practices. Our bankers ask us about our billing practices. And when we're applying for our insurance policies to be renewed, our insurance providers also ask us about our billing processes. So we're able to glean information from what best practices they use with their other clients, as well as to ask them questions as to how we can get better. And so then I recommend if you have a banker, don't just go to the branch manager, but go to the person who specializes in business banking or community banking. Your insurance provider, don't just go to the internet. Go to someone who is a seasoned insurance professional that can give you insight and ask them for what best practices are and if they can give you standards that you can implement in your billing processes. So Chief, what can new business owners do to get it right, to get the billing and accounts receivable right as they're starting out?
You just need a system. And I dropped 3 or 4 of them really quick. Like there's Honeybook, PayPal, there's QuickBooks. Like you kind of want to go to the next level, get QuickBooks online, right? It's simple. Get the plan that's good for you. You create your invoices and then you send it out. And then you have time frames. You need a process because you can send an invoice, but if you're not monitoring when the client pays or if that invoice is overdue and you're following up with them, that invoice could sit on their shelf for numerous reasons or in their inbox or on their desk, whatever, because maybe they forgot or they overlooked it. Like worst case scenario, they didn't have the money at the moment. Mm-hmm. But depending how many vendors they're working with, you could just fall into the fray and oh, sorry, we totally overlooked it because you didn't have a system or a process set up. So you need to have a process or a system. It's that simple. So you can send them out, you can track them, and you can receive the payments. Those 3 things.
So what are some of the common challenges that you've seen from your experience that business owners face when it comes to billing clients?
Clients not paying. That's number one. But let's just assume the client is paying, and we're looking at it from the small business perspective. Mm-hmm. So we're going to eliminate that. One is not billing in a consistent and on-time manner. Mm-hmm. Like you send out the invoice sporadically, like you send it out on the 1st of the month sometime, the next month you send it out on the 15th, and I get it. Like you're doing so many things, you're juggling a lot of balls. Mm-hmm. I personally been involved in it, it's happened at the soapbox a couple of times with some clients where we bill them monthly, and I was like, did I invoice them last month? And I'll go and look and be like, I didn't invoice them for that month, in whatever year it was. And I'm like, damn, this month I got to send them 2 invoices. And it kind of doesn't look good to the client either. And then it throws off their books and their accounting practices because now they're got to pay you for 2 months and 1 month when they should have been paying you monthly. So make sure your invoices are going out on time.
And make sure your invoices are accurate, because if you send wrong invoices to
it takes time. You got to correct it. They got questions, and it's just back and forth, and then
it makes you look bad.
Yeah, they think, and especially if you overbill them, they might think like you're trying to get over on them, and it could have just been a common, a simple mistake. But the other thing, small businesses I think make a mistake when it comes to their billing process, is not knowing when to cut off their service because someone is not paying them in the agreed upon time frame. There has to be a limit where you say, like, this is it, and I have to stop rendering the product or service to them because you're steady digging yourself in a deeper hole. And if they don't pay, you've just made that hole deeper, and you will never get that money back if they don't pay. So for argument's sake, if you're rendering services for someone and they pay on a 30-day cycle, and you notice that they're 1 month behind. Now you're still performing services for them and they're 1 month behind. So then now you're going in a hole another month. And then they haven't paid again. Now you're going in a hole for a third month. And depending on what your cash flow is or what your cash reserves is, you might not, and as well as your profit margin, because you're going to be taking profits from other accounts to keep floating that account until they finally pay you. And then you should have in your invoices, and let me be absolutely clear about this as a small business, and I see it overlooked a lot. You need to have late fees and freaking penalties in your agreements.
Well, I'm gonna say it a different way. Negotiate everything, and don't neglect to negotiate for things like late penalties and fees and late penalties.
You could negotiate all you want.
Because there are going to be some clients clients who say, this is our boilerplate template, our boilerplate contract, and we don't have any.
You tell them you don't eat boiled food. You prefer stir fried. You like it in the oven. You like it steamed. You don't do boiled. That's it. Like somebody tells you this is the boilerplate contract. Do you really want to work with them? Because they're telling you inadvertently it's their way or the highway. And it's supposed to be a partnership. It's supposed to be a two-way street. It's supposed to be a relationship. So if somebody's telling you, this is my boilerplate, this is how you do it, I don't pay late fees. Yeah, I had a client tell us that one time. Oh, you don't need to put a late fee in the contract. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. Well-renowned client, worldwide client, doing business all over the world, said to us at the negotiating table, we don't need a late fee put in there. We always pay on time, Waleed and Jessica. Ha, 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 ha. Yeah, 6-8 months into the relationship, we call them and be like, you know you haven't paid for like a month and a half? And they were like, nah, get out of here. Then they looked and was like, sorry about that, we'll pay you. And I was like, yeah, remember 8 months ago when you said you pay on time all the time? Put a late fee. There needs to be something in there. And it's not for you to make money off of it. The late fee should be because if they pay late, you're incurring other expenses to carry that note.
Money. There's a cost of money. Like if you had to go out to the markets and get money to cover what you're not getting in from them. If you had to get a loan or a line of credit, tap your line of credit or whatever, there's going to be a cost to you for that. There's going to be a cost to you for not being able to use the money that you already have.
And if you feel bad about it, you're like, hey, listen, like, you shouldn't even feel bad. It's business.
Christmas.
And what you can do to them also, if they want to bark at you about having a late fee and some kind of penalty, you could also put an early payment clause in there to say, well, if our terms of 30 or 45 days, whatever you agree, our terms are 30 days. But you know what? If you pay me before 30 days, I'm only give you a 1% discount. And you factor that into your pricing when you set it up and pitch them and say, listen, we'll give you an early payment reward or whatever you want to call it, early payment discount. So you could put both in so they'll look and say, oh, look, I get something. And then if they pay late, you get something. It should be a two-way street. So put those things in your agreements. Just because you're small doesn't mean you can't have the same things in your agreements.
Protection.
And protection that the big guys have. Because we all know you don't pay your cell phone bill. They're going to send you an email. They're going to call you. And then guess what? You get cut off. Mm-hmm. So you need to figure out what is your limit for every client before they've reached that point of no return. And you have to give them that email, that call and say, listen, we love working with you guys. But we haven't been paid, and we cannot continue to carry these services without getting paid.
So what can clients do better, especially when you're talking about startups, new people in business, about their role in the accounts receivable, the billing process?
You said what the clients can do better?
Yeah.
The biggest thing for me is to have open communication about who in their department or who in their team handles invoices. So when you generate your invoices, you're sending it directly to that person in that department. Mm-hmm. So it's no confusion and you could get paid as quickly as possible based on the terms. There's no friction. And we had that happen to Soapbox. We took on this new big client and they're doing services all over New York, and it's a phenomenal organization at what they do. And we started providing laundry services for their clients at one of their locations. And there was some confusion about who the invoice went to. In the beginning, it was like, oh, sent it here, but this email, I think, was kind of like a catch-all, it kind of just turned into a black hole. And it was like a couple months later, and I'm like, guys, like, what's up? We didn't get paid yet. And then some other people got involved and was like, oh, email me directly. And they took care of it really quick, sorted it out, and now things flow really smooth. I send the invoice, we get paid. So who needs to get the invoice or what department, and get that information and be clear about it.
To that end, my recommendation is that you start with the end in mind. When you're taking on a new client or customer, think about what you're going to need to get paid. And so if that's part of the negotiation, if that's part of your proposal process, incorporate that up front so that they know that you're serious about getting your money and that you have systems in place that will help ensure that they get a great product or service and that you get what you need. And recently I was looking online, and HubSpot, they had a new client welcome package kit that the team and I had downloaded to look at. And when someone agrees to do business with you, it basically lays out, okay, these are our terms. This is how we typically do it. But then that's where you open up the door and ask the questions Waleed just talked about. Okay, to whom should the invoices be submitted? When do they need to be submitted? Are there any supporting documents that need to go with the invoice? So in our case, it might be timesheets, insurance certificates, or waivers of lien or certified payroll. And what formats are acceptable? Do you take email? Do you need a hard copy? Do you need a wet signature? Do I need to upload it to a invoice portal? Understand those things up front so that if you need to have any additional administrative functions, you can put those in place and capture the cost of that and the cost of doing business, and that you're not 1, 2, 3 months in to doing the service or providing the product and realize that you're not getting paid. So make that part of your conversation, have the documentation, ask the questions, and look to HubSpot to see if you can find that new client welcome kit so that you can have the information to be successful once you start providing those services. I say, instead of being proactive, be preemptive when it comes to getting your money.
The cash flow is so important. Like, the faster you can get the cash through the door, the better you are, because you have it to work with versus waiting for it. And at the box, it was critical. You know, we started out, we've gone through, I don't know how many point of sale systems at the store. And it's like, we were looking to go to like, we've been through at least 5. And like, I'm talking to the 6th partner now and my fingers are crossed and I'm praying this is the one so we can consolidate everything. Mm-hmm. And that's a big thing. Sometimes in small businesses, the back end is so fragmented. We're using so many different platforms to do all these different things. And we really don't realize how much time that we spend on each platform versus if you had all that in one platform. So I'm going back to QuickBooks, which I think it's, you can love it or hate it or something equivalent to it. I used to use Xero, which was really straightforward platform like QuickBooks for account receivables, accounts payroll, for generating payroll, for bookkeeping. It was straightforward. It was like click here, and do it. But we had some issues with them with payroll, and then they decided to eliminate payroll and then hand it off to a third party. So you had to do this integration, which I wasn't a fan of. So we changed to QuickBooks. And I say it's good, especially if you tie everything in. So you have your business bank accounts. You tie them into QuickBooks or whatever your accounting platform is. And in real time, it's pulling data from your bank account to say, this was a debit, this was a credit. And then you can run reports. On a daily basis, I'll log into QuickBooks and look at the transactions, reconcile them, and then go to my profit and loss statement. So I know to the penny for that business, this is how much we did this month. This is how much we paid out this month. Like, this is how much I paid. You should know what you're paying your vendors. And like at the Soapbox, we deal with some vendors, and I'm proud to say we deal with local minority-owned vendors, and we shell out a pretty penny to the vendors that we work with. And I'm happy and I'm proud to say that we're keeping that money within other businesses in the community to circulate it and to grow. But because I'm using that platform, QuickBooks, I'm able to keep a pulse on exactly what's going in and what's going out. Then we can tie our POS system into it, so I can see what were the transactions for the day, credit versus debit versus cash. Like, all that's important for you to keep a pulse on your business and monitor those revenues.
Take this into consideration. According to USA Today, the average small business owner has approximately $195,000 in debt. Now, that's not necessarily small business debt, but stay grounded.
Is that really a lot?
It's a lot if you,
and granted, I'm like,
depending on your situation.
But it's the average, so it depends on where you are in the country.
The average small business owner makes $71,813 a year, and 86.3% of small business owners make less than $100,000 a year in income. And I would dare say that the numbers tend to be lower because we don't think about billing first. Put accounts receivable at the front of your list. And
I wonder if that's net or gross. That's a good amount of money. If they're saying the average small business, the question is, what do they define as small business? Because they're different. Like, SBA has one definition of a small business.
SBA has several definitions of small,
right?
Depending
And
on your
I've seen
code.
some places say small business like up to $30 million. And
Depends on your trade.
Right. And I'm like,
product or service.
And I see, I agree that it could depend on the trade, but I'm like, is 30 million still a small business? But depending on how many employees, it depends on how they categorize. Because they say you have this many employees makes you small, because you could be doing 30 million, have 10 people in your firm.
The people that are watching, that we're trying to encourage to start new businesses, many of them are not going to have one employee outside of themselves. They may not start with $1 million. They might not have anywhere close to $35 million, but they can be successful. They can be profitable, especially when they put accounts payable, billing at the front of their minds as they start and grow their business. So in addition to using the different types of software packages or platforms that we mentioned, I'll give you 2 additional tips. Automate. Whatever you do it on a recurring cycle. Tie it into your customer relationship management or your CRM system so that you have the right contacts within each client or customer to make sure that you get paid. Additionally, tie it into your calendar system so that you have reminders as to when you should submit those invoices and when you should send reminders if you haven't been paid. And lastly, I'll add document. Document when you close the deal. Document progressively as you complete the product or deliver the services, or you deliver the product, or when you come to the completion, let the client know. Then as you're sending information about billing, make sure that you keep track of that. I emailed you on the 1st when I sent you the invoice. On the 15th, I followed up to see what's the status, so that you make sure that you have a running trail, because in many instances, large businesses, especially corporations, will think that you as a small business owner are not going to keep track of that. And when you hit them with the paper, they have no choice but to give you your paper back. So those are just some tips to help you, especially if you're an aspiring or fresh startup entrepreneur.
Well, you've been in the game for a while. You're trying to push it to the next level. Like, you're like, why am I having these struggles because my business is not going to the next level? Like, it could be on your billing side. It could be your accounts receivable. Or you need some automation in your life to get the business to a certain level. Like, you don't want to have to do every single thing.
No. And invest in a good accounting and bookkeeping team that can help you understand what they call GAAP, generally accepted accounting practices.
Make them explain
so that
every
from
line
the
to you.
start, you get your money right.